Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures where humanity always rises. For a long time, Earth had been nothing but a joke among the stars. The Galactic Council often laughed whenever its name was mentioned. The humans, they would say, with a cruel smile. Ah yes, the little species that burned their own world. No signals had come from Earth in nearly a century. Their colonies had vanished. Their ships were gone. Many believed they had destroyed themselves. Others said they were too weak to survive. To most of the galaxy, humanity was already history. But not everyone was convinced. Admiral Krith of the Zorath Empire sat in silence aboard his ship, the Valoran's Edge, staring at a holographic map of the Sol system. He had read the old reports. Earth once had ambition, creativity, and danger inside its people. A species like that doesn't just vanish, he muttered. His second officer, a thin insectoid creature, clicked nervously. Admiral, the Council forbids investigation. Earth is off limits. Krith ignored him. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. Like the calm before a storm. The Valoran's Edge entered the edge of Sol system. The view was haunting. Mars was cold and dead. Earth's orbit was empty. No satellites. No signals. Just silence. But as the ship passed near Jupiter, the scanners detected something faint, an energy pulse, weak but repeating. Krith frowned. Source, he asked. It's human, sir, replied the technician. The crew exchanged worried glances. Human technology should not still be active after so many years. The pulse came from deep within Jupiter's shadow. Let's take a closer look, Krith ordered. The ship moved carefully into the dark side of the gas giant. The light faded until only the soft glow of instruments remained. Then, without warning, a small probe floated out from the darkness. Its metal was scorched, ancient, but the human symbol, a faded blue Earth surrounded by stars, was still visible on its side. It was sending out a message, repeating over and over. Krith leaned closer as the words translated on the screen. We are still here. The bridge went silent. Is this a trick? Someone whispered. Krith didn't answer. The probe system suddenly overloaded, releasing a surge of strange energy. The lights flickered, and for a split second, the sensors detected something massive behind Jupiter. Krith turned to the screen, and his heart froze. A shadow, colossal, motionless, and impossible to measure, hovered in the dark. What is that? Asked his officer. A ship? No one answered. The radar could not define its size or shape. It was as if the void itself had taken form. Then the shadow moved. Slowly, almost lazily, as if watching them. Krith felt an ancient instinct rise inside him, fear. Pull back, he ordered quietly. The engines roared to life. But the moment they turned, the shadow vanished. Gone. The scanners were blank again. The crew was terrified. Admiral, it could be a reflection, one said quickly. Or a system ghost. But Krith only stared at the empty dark beyond the viewport. No, he said. It was real. He could still feel it, like eyes watching from somewhere unseen. As they prepared to leave, the ship received another transmission, this time direct, short, and sharp. The computer almost refused to translate it, as if the data frightened the system itself. The message read, "You were warned." Then silence. All systems went back to normal. When the Valoran's Edge returned to the Council, Krith reported everything. The Council members laughed. Another ghost story from a frightened soldier, one of them said. Earth is gone, Admiral. Accept it. Krith's voice stayed steady. If Earth is gone, then who sent the message? The Council dismissed him from the chamber. They didn't want to hear about old human legends. They wanted control, not questions. But that night, as the great halls of the Council went dark, something strange appeared on their long-range sensors, a sudden burst of energy from the void beyond known space. A small research station near the edge of the galaxy reported seeing hundreds of faint lights moving through the darkness, like stars being born and then vanishing. Before they could send more data, the station went silent. The last thing their recorder transmitted was a single, chilling phrase, "They're coming back." Far away, hidden deep within the endless black of space, a fleet waited. Thousands of massive shapes, silent and still, cloaked in shadows. On their hulls, a single symbol glowed faintly, the blue Earth surrounded by stars. Humanity had not been destroyed. Humanity had not vanished. They had gone where no one dared to go, into the void itself. They had built something there, something powerful, something patient. And now, after centuries of silence, the forgotten planet was about to be remembered. The Galactic Council could no longer ignore the rumors. Reports were spreading from the outer systems, strange signals, vanishing ships, and sensor ghosts shaped like enormous vessels drifting in the dark. Most dismissed them as myths, but those who had seen the shadows never laughed again. Admiral Kritha's warnings had been mocked, yet now every transmission carried echoes of his words. Something was moving near Sol System. Something vast. The Council finally ordered a full investigation. A combined expedition fleet of 5 species gathered under the banner of peace and exploration, but deep inside, everyone knew they were afraid. They were going to find out if Earth had truly been reborn, or if something worse had taken its place. The fleet entered the Sol System cautiously, their ships spread wide like a silver net. The lead vessel, Valoran's Edge, once again carried Admiral Krith, who had demanded to return despite being nearly dismissed from service. He stared through the main viewport, the faint outline of Jupiter growing larger ahead. "Last time, we found a human probe," Krith said quietly to his crew. "This time, we might find what sent it." His second officer looked uneasy. "If humans are truly back, Admiral, they may not welcome us." Krith nodded. "Then we'll see what kind of beings they became." The scanners picked up debris scattered near the asteroid belt, metal fragments, clearly artificial. Krith ordered them collected. The fragments bore the unmistakable mark of human craftsmanship, but the material was strange, unlike anything in the Council's database. Stronger than titanium, layered with something that absorbed energy readings. One technician whispered, "These designs are impossible. Not even our most advanced forges could build this." Kritha's heart pounded. "They have been busy," he said softly. The crew exchanged nervous glances. If humans had achieved this level of technology, then everything the Council believed about superiority was a lie. As the fleet reached the orbit of Mars, they found something even more disturbing. A structure floated above the planet, massive, circular, and silent. It looked like a station, but it emitted no signals. "It's abandoned," said the sensor officer. "No life signs, no power." Krith didn't believe it. He ordered a small team to investigate. A shuttle approached the structure and docked. The airlocks opened smoothly, as if the station had been expecting them. Inside, everything was perfectly clean, the halls shining like polished metal. The team moved deeper until they found a chamber filled with dark glass pods. Each pod contained a frozen figure, a human in a black uniform. The leader of the team called out through the comms, his voice shaking. "Sir, they're in stasis. Thousands of them." The bridge went silent. Krith felt his breath catch. "Stasis, for how long?" "Unknown, Admiral," the officer replied. "But the systems are active. They're waiting for something." Before Krith could respond, alarms blared across the Valoran's Edge. The massive station suddenly came alive. Energy readings spiked. Lights turned red, and strange symbols appeared on their screens. The humans in the pods remained still, but a deep voice echoed across all communication channels. It was mechanical, cold, and human. "You are trespassing." Kritha's blood ran cold. "Identify yourself," he demanded. The voice responded instantly, with no emotion. "This is the United Terran Command. Leave this system at once." Every ship in the fleet froze in place. The voice continued, slow and deliberate. You mocked our world. You abandoned us. You believed we were gone. You were wrong. Before the fleet could react, a ripple spread across space. A distortion appeared behind Mars, as if reality itself was tearing open. Out of the rift emerged a massive shape, a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. It was silent, its black hull absorbing all light. No markings, no engines, only the faint blue glow of the Earth emblem near its front. The sensors couldn't measure its size. It dwarfed even the largest Council battleship. Is that human? Whispered the communications officer. Kritha's voice was barely a whisper. It has to be. The massive ship floated forward, silent and calm, and stopped directly between the alien fleet and Earth's orbit. The Council commanders panicked. Send a signal, shouted one. Tell them we come in peace. Every ship broadcasted at once, flooding the void with words of diplomacy. But the human vessel didn't respond. Instead, it sent a single transmission, a data packet. Krith ordered it opened. The hologram appeared in the air, showing images from centuries ago, recordings of the Galactic Council laughing at human ambassadors, denying them aid, mocking their desperation when Earth was dying. Then came footage of the last human message sent before their disappearance. If you will not help us, then do not look for us again. The final line of the transmission appeared in glowing white text, we remember. Every captain in the alien fleet felt the same cold fear crawl up their spine. Humanity had survived, and it remembered everything. Kritha's voice trembled. We need to retreat, he said. But before he could give the order, the void behind the first human ship began to twist and shimmer. Dozens of warp signatures appeared. One by one, more colossal vessels emerged, each darker and more silent than the last. Their formation was perfect. Their engines made no sound. Their weapons glowed faintly like sleeping stars. The human voice returned. You entered our system. Now witness what you mocked. The fleet watched in awe and terror as hundreds of human ships appeared from the void, surrounding them completely. The Valoran's Edge's sensors overloaded. Krith stared out the viewport, whispering to himself, this is not the same humanity we knew. The human flagship's front lights ignited, shining like a blue sun in the dark. Then, for the first time, the alien fleet heard the heartbeat of engines built by mankind, deep, thunderous, and alive. The voice spoke one last time before the transmission cut out. This is only the beginning. And in that cold silence, Admiral Krith realized the truth. Earth had never been weak. It had been waiting. The Council fleets floated in terrified silence. Before them, the human warship hung in the void like a sleeping god, its black surface swallowing all light. The ship's sheer size defied logic. It was not just a vessel, it was a moving fortress. No thrusters, no visible weapons, and yet its presence alone felt like a threat greater than any fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Krith stood on the bridge of the Valoran's Edge, his throat dry. Every instinct in him screamed to run, but his training forced him to stand his ground. Open a channel, he ordered quietly. Let's see if they'll talk. His communication officer hesitated before activating the link. Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Krith of the Galactic Council Fleet, he said nervously. We come in peace. We seek dialogue. The words drifted into the void, unanswered. The human ship remained motionless. The silence stretched for long minutes, heavy and endless. Then, without warning, the alien ship's systems flickered. Screens turned black. The power dipped. For a heartbeat, everything went dark. Then, a holographic signal appeared in front of every bridge across the entire fleet. It was a video feed, old but clear. The image showed several alien leaders laughing in a grand hall. It was a council meeting from centuries ago. The subject of the laughter, Earth. Kritha's stomach twisted as he watched the scene. Primitive, one alien voice said. Emotional. Unfit for galactic membership. Another added mockingly, let them destroy themselves, it will save us the trouble. The laughter echoed cruelly. Then the video ended, replaced by a single message written in white text, "We remember." Every officer on Kritha's bridge went pale. Someone whispered, "They were watching us this whole time." Another muttered, "They kept everything." Kritha's voice came out low, almost a whisper. "They want us to see what we did." Before anyone could reply, the communication channel opened again. A voice, unmistakably human but cold and mechanical, spoke across every ship at once. "You have returned to the grave you dug for us." "Why?" The tone was calm but sharp, like a blade. Krith stepped forward. "We are explorers," he said, forcing steady words. "We thought Earth was gone. We meant no harm." There was a pause, long and suffocating. Then the voice replied, "No harm? You mocked our extinction. You turned away when our skies burned. You let our children die in the dark. We do not forget." The message ended abruptly, leaving the alien commanders speechless. Then, just as suddenly, their radar screens exploded with new signals, hundreds of warp signatures lighting up all around the system. Kritha's heart began to pound. "Incoming ships, multiple, massive," shouted the sensor officer. "They're human. They're all human." In seconds, the void around them filled with movement. One after another, colossal vessels emerged from hyperspace, each one bearing the same dark hull, each one marked with the blue Earth emblem glowing faintly like a ghost light. The alien fleet was surrounded on all sides. Kritha's second officer gasped. "Admiral, they're not attacking." It was true. The human ships formed a silent perimeter around the aliens. No weapons were powered, no signals transmitted. They just watched. It was more terrifying than an attack. The silence screamed louder than any war. "It's a display," Krith realized. "They want us to see how strong they've become." Then, from the largest ship in the formation, a vessel so enormous it made moons look small, a transmission came through. The voice was the same as before, but now there was something darker in it. "We offered peace once. We offered unity. You answered with laughter. Now we offer nothing." Krith clenched his fists. "Wait," he said, trying to reason. "If you destroy us, you'll start another war across the stars. You'll become what they accused you of being." There was silence again, then a quiet reply. "We already did." The holographic display on Kritha's bridge changed once more. It now showed images of desolate planets, worlds long believed to be empty. But they were not empty. Each one contained massive human-built structures, entire cities hidden beneath their surfaces. Factories, shipyards, and something that looked like colossal engines built into the crusts of planets. "These worlds, they were building all this in secret," said the engineer in disbelief. Krith felt a chill. "For centuries," he said softly. "They were preparing." The human voice returned one final time. "We will not harm those who do not interfere. Leave this system and never return. Next time you come, you will not be greeted." Then the transmission cut. The human ships began to move, slowly repositioning themselves into tight formations, like wolves guarding their territory. Krith turned to his crew. "Prepare to withdraw," he said. But even as the words left his mouth, one of the council admirals from another ship panicked and fired a warning shot. The beam struck the nearest human cruiser and vanished harmlessly against its hull, as if absorbed. The human ship didn't retaliate immediately, it only turned its massive frame toward the attacking vessel. Then, in complete silence, a single burst of light erupted from its side. The alien ship was gone. Not destroyed, not exploded, simply erased, leaving behind only dust. Every alien captain froze. Krith could barely speak. "Stop firing." "Now," he shouted into the comms. But it was too late. Several smaller council ships opened fire in blind fear. The human fleet responded instantly, their weapons precise and cold. In less than 20 seconds, half of the council's front line vanished. No debris. No escape pods. Just emptiness. Then the human voice spoke again, quieter this time. "We warned you once." The remaining alien ships powered down completely, terrified. The humans did not pursue. They simply turned away and began to drift back toward the dark side of Jupiter. One by one, they vanished into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as they had appeared. The silence that followed was unbearable. Admiral Krith looked out at the blackness where the human fleet had been and whispered, "They've become something else. Not conquerors. Not victims. Something far beyond both." As the fleet limped away from Sol System, Krith sent a final report to the Council. He described everything he saw, every word he heard. But as he looked at the recording of the last human message, those simple, cold words we remember, he knew the truth. The first contact had happened again. And this time, humanity was not the same species the galaxy once mocked. This time, humanity was the shadow in the dark. The Galactic Council was in chaos. News of the encounter spread faster than light, igniting panic across every civilized world. Every report was the same: humans had returned, and their fleet was beyond comprehension. Entire governments called emergency sessions. Some wanted to prepare for war, while others demanded peace before it was too late. But no one could agree. They had mocked Earth for centuries, and now the laughter had turned to silence and fear. On his command ship, Admiral Krith stood alone, replaying the human transmission again and again. "We remember." Those two words haunted him. He knew they were not a threat, they were a promise. The galaxy had forgotten humanity's spirit, its hunger, its stubborn will to survive. And now, humanity had come back to remind them. A week later, the Council assembled a new fleet, larger than ever before, composed of the best ships from 6 different species. They called it the Unity Armada, though everyone knew it was born of fear, not unity. Krith was placed in command. "Your task," said the Council High Speaker, "is to re-establish communication with the humans. We must show them the galaxy does not wish for war." Krith wanted to believe that, but deep inside, he knew better. The Council wanted control again, not peace. Still, he obeyed. The Armada left for Sol System, their hyperspace engines lighting up like a storm of blue fire. But when they arrived, the system was empty. No ships. No signals. Only drifting debris, fragments of alien vessels from the first encounter. The void felt heavy, like something unseen was watching. "Nothing on scanners," reported the officer. "Not even planetary signals." Krith frowned. "Impossible. Earth cannot be that quiet." He ordered long-range sweeps. The results returned minutes later, anomalies near Saturn's rings. Strange readings, unlike any known energy source. Krith's instincts flared. "Move us closer." As they approached, the view from the bridge became darker. The stars around them seemed to dim, one by one. And then, space rippled. Dozens of massive shadows appeared, uncloaking in perfect formation. The returned fleet had arrived. The humans were back. Each ship was enormous, black as night, their hulls lined with faint blue markings that pulsed like veins. "They're all around us," whispered Krith's navigator. The Unity Armada was surrounded, trapped in a silent circle of metal giants. "Open a channel," Krith said, his voice calm though his heart was pounding. "This is Admiral Krith of the Galactic Council. We come seeking peace." For a long moment, there was no answer. Then, a voice replied, not one voice, but thousands speaking together, a perfect harmony that shook the comms with cold power. Peace was offered. Peace was mocked. Peace was broken. Krith tried again. "We regret the past, but war will destroy us all." "You don't have to," the voice interrupted. "You are already destroyed. You just don't know it yet." Then the human fleet began to move. Slowly, deliberately, their ships glided past the alien armada. No weapons fired, no aggression, just presence. The humans didn't need to attack. Their existence alone was dominance. One of Krith's admirals lost his nerve. "They're threatening us." "We can't just stand here," he shouted. Before Krith could stop him, his ship powered up its main cannon and fired at the nearest human vessel. The energy beam struck directly, but it vanished on impact, absorbed into the black hole like water into sand. Then the human ship turned. Without sound or flash, a beam of pure white light erupted from its side. The alien ship dissolved instantly, reduced to vapor. The human voice spoke again, calm as death. "First warning. There will not be a second." The Unity Armada froze. No one dared move or speak. Krith felt something strange. The human ships weren't here to kill, they were observing. Studying. "They're testing us," he murmured. "They want to see how we respond." His officers looked at him in disbelief. "Testing us? For what?" Krith stared out at the endless formation of warships. "To decide if we're worth sparing." As if answering his thought, a single human drone detached from the flagship and approached the Valoran's edge. It was small, almost elegant, glowing softly as it hovered near the viewport. Then it projected an image, a map of the galaxy. Certain systems were marked in red. Human colonies. Lost worlds. Abandoned stations. A message appeared below the map: "These are ours. Return what was taken." Krith understood instantly. The humans wanted their old territory back, their colonies, their legacy. The Council had claimed them centuries ago after Earth's silence. "They want us to leave," Krith said quietly. "They're reclaiming their past." The message shifted again, showing a countdown timer, 10 days. 10 days, Krith repeated. "To evaluate the colonies." The other admirals erupted in protest. "We can't just give them up. Those systems are valuable." Krith turned sharply. "Then prepare for extinction." The Council fleet retreated from Sol System, shaken to its core. Every alien world trembled at the news. Humanity had returned to claim what was once theirs. 10 days passed quickly. Some colonies evaluated, others refused. On the 11th day, deep in Council space, the stars flickered. Every shipyard, every military outpost, every weapon system shut down all at once. A massive energy surge spread through hyperspace, an invisible wave triggered by human technology hidden for centuries. It crippled the entire defense network in seconds. Then, without warning, hundreds of human ships emerged across multiple systems, each appearing as if born from darkness itself. They didn't conquer. They didn't negotiate. They simply took back what had once been theirs. Admiral Krith watched it all unfold from his flagship, powerless. The galaxy's greatest alliance crumbled without a single battle. The humans had already won before the war began. As he stared into the void, he whispered to himself, "They never left. They were just waiting for the right moment." The humans called it the Return Fleet, but to the rest of the galaxy, it was the awakening of a sleeping giant. And for the first time in centuries, every world finally understood the truth: mocking Earth had been their greatest mistake. The galaxy was no longer laughing. Entire sectors were in panic as humanity's returned fleet moved through the stars like a silent storm. No declarations, no negotiations, only quiet reclamation. One system after another fell dark, not from war but from surrender. Every colony the humans had once claimed was being evaluated under the same message that haunted every broadcast: return what was taken. There were no demands for tribute, no speeches of revenge, just the cold precision of a species that had remembered everything done to it. On the Council homeworld, the High Speaker watched the reports in horror. "They're unstoppable," he whispered. "Their technology, how did they build all of this?" No one had an answer. The truth was simple: the Council had forgotten Earth, but Earth had not forgotten the Council. Admiral Krith was summoned once again to the Council chambers. His face was pale and tired. The great hall, once filled with arrogance, now trembled with fear. "Admiral," said the High Speaker, "you have seen them up close. What do they want?" Krith's voice was calm but heavy. "They want justice. And they want their history back. We laughed when they asked for help. We left them to die. They survived without us. Now they're showing us what that means." The council members murmured among themselves, unwilling to accept what they had created. "We must negotiate," said one. "Send envoys, offer them peace." Another shouted, "Peace? They've erased fleets without a word. They want our submission." Krith stood in silence until they stopped arguing. "They already have it," he said quietly. "You just haven't realized it yet." As the council wasted hours in debate, humanity made its next move. Across the stars, encrypted transmissions began appearing in alien datanets, records, old and forgotten, pulled from council archives. They showed the history no one wanted to remember, the day the council banished Earth. The recordings played across the networks, impossible to block. The galaxy watched as alien ambassadors mocked desperate human envoys who begged for aid. "Your wars are your own," the aliens had said. "The council cannot waste resources on a dying planet." Another video showed the last human ship leaving council space, its captain's voice bitter and cold, "If you ever see us again, it will not be for help." Those words echoed now across every screen in the galaxy. Humanity had not only returned, they had brought proof of every betrayal. When Krith saw the footage, he felt shame burn deep inside him. The galaxy had believed the humans were gone, but their memory had survived in silence. "They've kept everything," he whispered. "Every word. Every insult." On his ship, the Valoran's Edge, the crew intercepted a new transmission, this time, directly from the human flagship Eclipse. The message was short, clear, and terrifying. "You will surrender all colonies within our claimed sectors. Those who resist will not exist." There was no anger in the words, no hate. Just calm certainty. It wasn't vengeance. It was judgment. Within days, panic spread to the outer worlds. Some species fled their colonies before the human fleets even arrived, leaving behind cities and technology as offerings of surrender. Others tried to fight and were simply erased. Human ships never stayed long. They came, took, and disappeared into the dark. But what frightened everyone most was how little humanity spoke. No speeches, no celebrations. Only efficiency. The silence of their war was worse than any weapon. It was as if the humans had moved beyond emotion, beyond mercy. They had become something colder, something that remembered pain but no longer felt it. Admiral Krith received a summons from the human fleet. The message came with coordinates far beyond council space. Against the orders of his superiors, Krith went. His ship entered a region known as the Black Veil, a stretch of empty space that no one had ever explored. The sensors went dead the moment they crossed the threshold. Then, suddenly, lights appeared all around them, hundreds, then thousands. Human ships filled the darkness, silent and unmoving, their hulls glimmering faintly with blue markings. Krith stared in awe. "How many are there?" his officer whispered. "Too many," Krith replied. "Far too many." A voice came through the comms, calm and commanding. "Admiral Krith, representative of the Galactic Council. You came alone." Krith took a deep breath. "You wanted to speak." "I came to listen." The voice did not belong to a single person, it sounded layered, like thousands speaking as one. "You were one of the few who doubted," it said. "You warned them. You tried to understand." Krith swallowed hard. "You've proven your power. The galaxy knows your strength. But what comes next? Do you mean to destroy us all?" There was a long pause. Then the voice replied, "Destruction is mercy compared to what you did to us. But we are not here to destroy. We are here to reclaim." The eclipse appeared before them, its presence immense. It blocked out the stars entirely. On its side, the words United Terran Command shone in pale light. "We remember everything," the voice continued. "Every insult, every betrayal, every abandoned promise. We built our strength on your rejection. We rose because you left us to fall." Krith felt the weight of every word. "And now?" he asked softly. Now, the voice said, we will take back what is ours, and you will live to remember what you did. The transmission ended. The human fleet turned, their engines glowing faintly as they vanished one by one into the void, leaving the Valoran's edge drifting in silence. Krith stood at the viewport, staring into the empty dark. He understood now, the humans weren't simply returning for revenge. They were reshaping the galaxy in their image. They had been mocked, abandoned, and forgotten, but now their memory was eternal. They remembered everything. And the rest of the galaxy would never forget them again. The galaxy trembled under a silent truth: humanity had not just survived, it had evolved beyond recognition. Every world, every fleet, every ruler who once mocked Earth now whispered one question that no one could answer: who truly commands the Human Armada? The massive fleets moved in perfect coordination without hesitation or delay, as if they shared one mind. No individual voices, no political leaders, only the emblem of the United Terran Command. To most, it looked like a symbol of unity. To those who had seen it up close, it looked like a warning. Deep within the void, hidden from all known maps, the true command center existed, a colossal station built into the heart of a dead star. This was the Nexus. And it was where humanity's fate was written. Inside the Nexus, the atmosphere was calm yet charged with purpose. Thousands of humans worked silently, each one part of something far greater than themselves. There was no shouting, no chaos, only quiet discipline. In the central chamber, Admiral Serena Holt stood before a holographic projection of the galaxy. Her face was emotionless, but her eyes burned with focus. She was one of the first generation born after the banishment. Her parents had died building the first ships in the Dark Colonies. She had grown up listening to the stories of betrayal, of humiliation, of Earth left to die while the Council watched. Those stories became the foundation of who she was. Now, she commanded the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. A communication alert flickered. "Admiral," said the voice of her intelligence officer, "the Council fleet has regrouped near Delta Sector 9. They're gathering reinforcements from allied species." Serena didn't even look surprised. "Of course they are," she replied. "Fear makes alliances faster than faith." The officer hesitated. "Their transmission requests negotiation. They offer recognition of Earth's sovereignty." Serena turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "Recognition? After they erased us from their records? After they watched us burn?" She stepped closer to the display. "They recognize us now because they're afraid. Tell them this: humanity doesn't need recognition. Humanity remembers." The officer nodded, knowing there was no room for debate. While the Council prepared for what they called the final defense, the human fleets continued their advance, but not with violence, at least not immediately. In several systems, they simply appeared, hovering above alien worlds without firing a single shot. They transmitted a simple message: return what was taken. When the aliens complied, the fleets departed without destruction. But those who resisted vanished overnight. No debris, no survivors, no trace. The pattern was clear: humanity was not at war, they were cleansing their past. Entire civilizations began surrendering without a fight, terrified not by human weapons but by their silence. No one could predict where they would strike next. It was as if they already knew the galaxy's every secret. Inside the Nexus, Admiral Holt met with her strategic council, a group of men and women whose calm intelligence seemed almost inhuman. One of them, a scientist named Dr. Kieran Voss, spoke with quiet authority. "We've intercepted Council transmissions. They believe we are a hive intelligence, some kind of collective mind." Serena smirked slightly. "They're not entirely wrong," she said. "The Unity Network connects every ship, every soldier. Thought, strategy, and decision flow as one. Humanity no longer acts as individuals, we act as purpose." Voss nodded. "They fear what they don't understand. They think we lost our humanity." Serena turned toward him. "No," she said. "We found it. We found what it means to survive when the universe wants you gone." Meanwhile, Admiral Krith, the lone alien who had dared to meet with the humans, stood before the council once again. The chamber was filled with panic and division. Some demanded surrender, others screamed for total war. "You don't understand," Krith said. "You cannot defeat them. They are not fighting for revenge. They are fighting for history." The High Speaker slammed his hand on the table. "They are monsters. No species has the right to dominate all others." Krith met his gaze coldly. "And yet you tried to dominate them once, didn't you?" The chamber fell silent. Krith looked around. "You all mocked them. You all left them to die. Now you see what that mistake has created." His words hung in the air like a curse. At that same moment, far away, Admiral Holt received a new signal. It was ancient, weak, and distorted, a message from Earth itself. The home planet, long forgotten by the stars, had remained silent for decades. But now, a transmission pulsed through the void. Humanity returns not as conquerors, but as memory. Protect what remains. Reclaim what was lost. Serena listened in silence. She had never been to Earth. Few in the Armada had. Yet the message struck something deep inside her. For the first time in years, she felt something close to sorrow. She looked out the viewport at the dark horizon of space. "Earth speaks again," she whispered. Dr. Voss stepped beside her. "What will you do?" Serena closed her eyes briefly, then replied, "We finish what we started. The galaxy must remember who we are. Not as monsters. As the truth they buried." Outside, the human fleets began forming new patterns across the stars, an enormous spiral centered on the coordinates of Earth. It was both a formation and a symbol. The galaxy watched in awe and dread as the pattern grew brighter, ship by ship, until it could be seen from dozens of worlds. In the council chamber, Admiral Krith stood at the window, watching the spiral on the display. "What are they doing?" someone asked. Krith's voice was quiet but steady. "They're coming home." The High Speaker turned pale. "Home? But Earth is," Krith interrupted, "you never understood them. For humans, home is not a place. It's a memory. And they will not stop until every world remembers it too." As the fleets aligned, the stars themselves seemed to dim. The final stage of humanity's plan had begun, and the universe could only watch in silence. Earth was no longer the forgotten planet, it had become the center of everything. And those who once mocked it now waited in fear for what would come from the void next. The formation of the human fleets around Earth became the greatest sight the galaxy had ever witnessed. Billions of eyes across hundreds of worlds stared at the glowing spiral that stretched across the void like a symbol of power and remembrance. Every point of light in that spiral was a warship, and every warship carried the same insignia, the mark of the United Terran Command. It wasn't just a fleet anymore, it was a declaration. The galaxy that once called Earth weak was now watching its rebirth as the center of everything. Inside the Nexus, Admiral Serena Holt stood in silence as transmissions poured in from across the human territories. "The alignment is complete," reported Dr. Voss. "Every ship has taken position. The signal from Earth is growing stronger." Serena nodded slowly. "Begin the relay. Let them hear what we've become." A low hum filled the chamber as thousands of communication relays activated across the fleet. Then, a voice began to echo through every known communication channel in the galaxy. It was old, distorted, yet strangely familiar. "To all who hear this," the voice said, calm but heavy, "this is Earth. You abandoned us when we were broken. You mocked us when we struggled. You thought the void would silence us forever. But humanity does not vanish. We endure." The voice paused for a moment as if letting the words sink in. "We are not here for vengeance. We are here to remind you what you chose to forget." Across the galaxy, panic spread. The council called an emergency session. Countless species listened to the message with fear and awe. The signal was unstoppable, it overrode every network, every defense, every system. Even ships in deep space heard it clearly. "You looked upon us as weak," the voice continued. You believed our world was nothing. But while you built empires, we built something else, memory. Every scar, every betrayal, every whisper of mockery, you gave us the reason to rise. The voice grew deeper, more powerful. Now we return, not as servants, not as victims, but as the proof that you were wrong. Inside the council chamber, the High Speaker slammed his fist onto the table. Shut that signal down, he roared. Find its source. But it was impossible. The voice of Earth came from everywhere and nowhere, carried by millions of ships acting as one. Admiral Krith watched the display in silence. You can't silence them, he said. They've waited too long to be heard. The High Speaker turned to him in fury. And you defend them? Krith's eyes were cold. No. I respect them. Because they warned us what would happen, and we laughed. Now, they're laughing back. In the Nexus, Admiral Holt listened as the voice continued. For a brief second, she recognized it, not just as a broadcast, but as something ancient. It was a recording of Commander Elias Ward, one of Earth's final leaders before the banishment. He had spoken those words centuries ago, his last message before humanity disappeared beyond the stars. We are not gods, the recording said. We are survivors. We don't seek to rule. We seek to remember. When the transmission ended, silence fell across the command center. No one spoke for several moments. Finally, Dr. Voss turned to Serena. The message is complete. Every major system received it. What are your orders? Serena's expression didn't change. Wait, she said quietly. Let them feel the silence that follows. That silence was more powerful than any weapon. On alien worlds, people stared at the empty sky, wondering if humanity would come next. Some prepared to flee, others prepared to kneel. The Council sent desperate messages of peace, but none were answered. In one corner of the galaxy, an alien news network tried to broadcast hope, perhaps humanity only seeks acknowledgement. But no one believed it. Everyone knew, humans never acted without purpose. And if they had gathered their entire fleet, it was not just to speak. It was to decide the future. Days passed. No human ships moved. No attacks came. The galaxy waited in terror for the next step. Then, on the seventh day, the void rippled. Thousands of human ships vanished from their positions, folding through space with unimaginable precision. Alarms blared across the council sectors. They're jumping, shouted a sensor officer. But, not towards us, they're heading everywhere. Within minutes, the fleet spread out across the stars, appearing above key worlds. Yet still, they did not fire. Instead, each fleet projected a massive image into orbit, the emblem of Earth glowing like a sun. And beneath it, one message appeared on every screen, every building, every ship: we are watching. Admiral Krith, stationed aboard the Council's command vessel, received a direct transmission. It was from Admiral Holt herself. Her image appeared, calm and steady. Admiral Krith, she said, you once came to us alone. You understood what the others would not. I am giving you a chance to end this. Krith frowned. What do you want me to do? Serena leaned closer to the display. Tell the Council to stand down. Tell them to return every human record they erased. Every archive, every history, every map. They will restore our name to the stars, or the stars will burn. Krith hesitated. If I do this, will you stop? Serena's eyes hardened. No. But it will buy you time. Then the transmission ended. Krith stared at the screen in silence. He knew he couldn't stop what was coming. The Council was doomed by its own arrogance. Still, he had to try. He stood before the chamber one last time. They have given us a choice, he said. Restore what we took, or lose everything. The High Speaker's voice trembled with anger. You would kneel before them? Krith looked straight into his eyes. No, he said. I would survive them. Back on the Nexus, Admiral Holt stood at the viewport, watching the fleets return from their jumps. They are afraid, Dr. Voss said softly. Good, she replied. Fear makes them listen. But soon, they must understand. Understand what? He asked. Serena turned her gaze toward the distant blue sphere of Earth. That this isn't about power. It's about truth. We remember who we are. Now, the galaxy will remember too. The stars outside seemed to flicker, as if the universe itself was listening. Humanity had spoken, and the void had answered. The message from Earth had changed everything, and this was only the beginning. The galaxy held its breath. No species had ever seen such precision, such discipline, such absolute control over the void. The humans had arrived without warning, their fleets moving like shadows across light years. Entire council sectors had gone dark, their ships vanished without a trace. Panic spread faster than any virus, and the council could do nothing. Every attempt to form a defensive line failed. Every strike they made was met with silence and destruction. Humanity had learned every lesson of war from the galaxy itself, and now they used it with terrifying perfection. Admiral Krith watched the reports from the Valoran's edge, disbelief etched into his face. They're everywhere, he said quietly. There's no way to contain them. At the edge of a neutral star system, a fleet of alien ships tried to block the human advance. The Council had gathered its finest captains, their fleets bristling with the most advanced weapons ever built. The humans arrived slowly, silently, as if measuring every movement, calculating every outcome. Then, in a blink, the void around the Council fleet rippled. Hundreds of wormholes opened, each one spitting out a human vessel directly inside the alien formation. The aliens scrambled, firing blindly, but their attacks bounced harmlessly off shields that absorbed everything. Within minutes, entire squadrons disappeared, reduced to nothing more than vapor. Those who survived tried to retreat, only to find more ships emerging from the wormholes behind them. There was no front line, no flanks, no escape. Humanity controlled the battlefield in every dimension at once. Admiral Holt watched the reports from the command deck of the flagship Eclipse. They still resist, said Dr. Voss. Yes, Holt replied, her voice calm. But it's almost over. They don't understand, they can't comprehend strategy at this scale. War is no longer just battle. It is inevitability. Every human vessel moved as though connected to a single mind, coordinated with the precision of a perfect machine. They didn't fire unless necessary, and when they did, it was decisive. A single strike could erase a fleet, but they used it sparingly. The galaxy was being taught a lesson in restraint and power. They fight not to conquer, said Holt, but to show they cannot be challenged successfully. The wormholes themselves were a weapon. Entire squadrons of alien ships were transported across space instantly, trapped between points they could not escape. Their sensors failed, their engines faltered, and panic spread like wildfire. On the bridge of one Council battleship, Captain Ryle screamed at his officers. What is happening? Where are they coming from? The response was the same across every vessel, everywhere and nowhere. The humans had mastered the void itself. They could appear anywhere, strike anywhere, and vanish before retaliation. It was not chaos, it was order, absolute and perfect. In one of the galaxy's central sectors, an entire fleet had assembled to stop the advance. Thousands of ships, dozens of species, united under the Council's banner. They called it the final stand. For hours, the fleets waited, scanning the stars. Then, without warning, the void fractured. Dozens of wormholes opened simultaneously. Human ships poured through, appearing in every position they could have anticipated. Not one Council ship escaped. Within minutes, the fleet had been neutralized. Some ships were destroyed, others captured, but all were rendered powerless. The humans did not celebrate. They did not taunt. They simply moved on, leaving a message behind: next time, you will not escape. Admiral Krith was captured during one of the assaults. His ship was absorbed into a wormhole, transported directly to the human flagship. He found himself standing before Admiral Holt in the central command chamber. The room was vast, dimly lit, with a single viewport showing stars beyond comprehension. Holt looked at him calmly. "Admiral Krith," she said, "you warned them. You tried to understand. You survived because of that. But do not mistake survival for mercy." Krith swallowed hard. "Why are you doing this? You could destroy everything. Why not?" Holt's eyes hardened. "Because we are not like you. We remember. We fight when necessary. We take only what was ours. War is a tool, not a pleasure." Krith could see the scale of the human empire and the stars outside. Hundreds of ships, stretching farther than the eye could perceive, each one part of a single, unstoppable force. "You've changed," he whispered. Holt smiled faintly. "No. We have become what we always were. Humanity endures. Humanity commands. We were underestimated, abandoned, and forgotten. That is no longer our weakness." The wormhole network continued to expand. Systems that had been lost to the Council for centuries were suddenly in human hands again, reclaimed without a fight. Every defensive structure, every planetary weapon, every fleet that had once controlled the stars fell into human control. The galaxy could only watch. Panic turned to despair. Resistance became pointless. And all the while, the humans moved silently, calculating their next steps with precision that no one could predict. By the time the Council realized the extent of the human power, it was already too late. The wormholes had created a web across the galaxy, connecting key systems and colonies. The Human Armada could strike anywhere, at any moment, with absolute certainty. The Council's most powerful fleets were trapped, isolated, and disarmed by fear and strategy. And at the center of it all stood the Eclipse, massive, black, glowing faintly with the blue Earth emblem, the command heart of humanity itself. Admiral Krith understood finally what he had only feared before. "They are not here to kill for revenge," he said quietly to himself. "They are here to reclaim what was stolen, and to remind the galaxy that no one forgets humanity and survives unpunished." Outside the viewport, the stars flickered with the light of countless human ships. The wormhole network pulsed, a living web of power stretching across space. Humanity had returned from the void not as a victim, not as a conqueror, but as a force beyond comprehension. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The Galactic Council was collapsing. Systems that had once boasted immense fleets, proud fortresses, and powerful weapons now lay in eerie silence. Humanity's returned fleet had swept across the stars with a precision no one could resist. Entire sectors surrendered without a fight, their leaders terrified into compliance by the mere presence of human warships. The Council had tried to rally forces, called upon allied species, and mobilized every fleet available, yet nothing could stop the silent, calculated advance of the United Terran Command. Panic spread faster than any message could contain. World after world fell dark, and the Council's pride turned to ash. Admiral Krith watched the reports in horror, realizing the truth he had tried to warn them about: mocking Earth had been the greatest mistake in galactic history. The human fleets moved as though they were alive. Their ships coordinated without communication delays, appearing in multiple places at once through the wormhole network. Even the most heavily fortified Council worlds fell quickly. Defensive systems were neutralized before they could react. Starports surrendered instantly. Colonies that had been claimed for centuries were returned in hours, their leaders trembling before the humans. And everywhere the humans appeared, the message was the same: return what was taken. Those who resist will not survive. There were no speeches, no threats. Only action. And the galaxy learned that the silence of humanity was worse than any weapon. Admiral Holt oversaw the operation from the Nexus, her eyes scanning countless star systems projected across holographic maps. Dr. Voss stood beside her, calculating logistics. "They are beginning to understand," he said. "The Council fleets are fractured, scattered, unable to form a single line of defense." Serena Holt nodded. "Yes. They've learned the lesson of underestimating us. By the time they comprehend the scale of our power, it will be irreversible." Every move was deliberate. every strike measured. There was no chaos in the human advance, only perfect execution. Each fleet was part of a larger network, an invisible web controlling the void. It was not just war, it was inevitability. On the Council homeworld, leaders convened in the Grand Chamber, panic evident on every face. "We must negotiate," shouted one representative. "We can offer reparations, tribute, anything to end this." Another screamed, "Negotiate? They erased half our fleets without firing a shot. They will not accept compromise." Krith stood among them, his face pale but calm. "You are listening to yourselves," he said quietly. "You created this. You laughed at Earth, abandoned it, and now you are powerless." The room fell silent. His words were true. The Council had underestimated humanity's resilience, intelligence, and memory. They had assumed Earth was gone, never suspecting that its people had been planning, waiting, and growing in secret. Meanwhile, human fleets reached the central systems. Entire capitals were encircled by ships that dwarfed anything previously built. Energy fields shimmered across the void, blanketing worlds in an invisible web of control. Krith's old allies watched in horror as fleets attempted desperate counterattacks. They fired their most powerful weapons, launching volleys of energy and projectiles at human vessels. But every attack failed. Shields absorbed everything, and the human ships responded with precise strikes that neutralized Council weapon systems instantly. Entire battleships were erased from existence in moments, their crews vaporized or captured. Humanity's control was absolute, their patience measured, their memory perfect. In one final desperate act, the Council tried to use its ultimate weapon, a massive orbital cannon capable of annihilating a planet. The humans arrived before it could be fired. Using the wormhole network, hundreds of ships materialized around the cannon in seconds. Without firing a single shot, they deactivated its systems remotely. Holographic messages appeared across every display in the Council chamber: "Stop what you started, or it ends now." Fear and respect spread simultaneously. The Council understood that they were powerless, and the humans had made no empty threats. Every system, every fleet, and every leader knew the truth: humanity had returned, and the galaxy would be remade according to their memory. Admiral Krith was summoned to meet with Admiral Holt aboard the flagship Eclipse. He stepped onto the bridge, dwarfed by the enormous warship and its silent, disciplined crew. Holt's presence was commanding, yet calm. "Admiral Krith," she said, "you were honest with them. You understood our purpose. That is why you are here." Krith bowed slightly. "I have seen what you have built. I understand now. But you are not here to destroy, only to reclaim?" Holt's gaze was steady. "Exactly. We do not destroy without reason. We correct history. The galaxy will remember humanity not for weakness, but for endurance." Krith nodded, realizing that he had witnessed the rise of a force that had been underestimated for centuries. Over the next days, the Council formally surrendered. Human fleets occupied every central system, not with violence, but with authority. Their presence alone ensured obedience. Territories stolen from Earth were returned. Archives were restored. Historical records were corrected. Every alien leader understood that to oppose humanity was futile. The galaxy had learned to fear and respect Earth not for its size or strength, but for its memory, its intelligence, and its patience. Admiral Krith watched the final reports as the Council's power crumbled. "They remember everything," he whispered. "Every insult, every betrayal. And now, so does the galaxy." As the human fleets receded to orbit their reclaimed worlds, a calm settled over the void. The Council was no more than a shadow of its former self. Humanity had not sought vengeance, they had reclaimed what was theirs and restored balance. But their presence reminded the galaxy of one enduring truth: mocking Earth had been the gravest mistake ever made, and no one would forget it again. The stars themselves seemed to hum in acknowledgement as the United Terran Command stood victorious, silent, and eternal, the memory of humanity now written across the universe. The galaxy was forever changed. The United Terran Command had returned from the void not as a vengeful force, but as a reckoning. Every council fleet that had once ruled with arrogance was gone, erased by the precision of human strategy. Entire sectors now bore the mark of humanity, not conquest, but reclamation. Systems abandoned, stolen, or forgotten for centuries were returned to those who had built them, rebuilt with human knowledge and technology. On board the flagship Eclipse, Admiral Serena Holt stood at the viewport, gazing at the stars. The void was no longer silent, it pulsed with the presence of humanity, a reminder that no civilization could ignore Earth again. Around her, the Nexus hummed with activity, coordinating fleets and colonies with unerring precision. Humanity had not just returned, they had ascended. In council space, remnants of the old regime struggled to understand what had happened. Leaders who had once mocked humans now trembled at the mere mention of Earth. Krith moved silently among them, watching the collapse of centuries of arrogance. They were underestimated, he said softly. Every world that thought itself safe has learned the same lesson: humanity is not what they appear to be. They are the memory of all who survived and endured. The council attempted to rally its forces, but it was useless. Human fleets were everywhere, appearing simultaneously in multiple systems through wormhole networks that no one could predict. There was no single front, no vulnerability. Humanity controlled space itself, and the galaxy understood the cost of underestimating them. On a distant colony, a young officer watched the human fleet glide above the horizon. They never fired a single shot at us, he said. And yet we feared them more than any war we've fought. His mentor nodded gravely. Fear is not from weapons, it is from certainty. They act with knowledge. Every move has purpose. And they remember everything. Across the galaxy, this lesson was repeated countless times. Systems surrendered before engagement. Leaders begged for mercy that was not needed. Humanity's presence was both a shield and a statement, a reminder that the past could not be ignored and that history demanded respect. Back in the Nexus, Admiral Holt coordinated the final phase of the reclamation. Dr. Voss reported progress. Every recovered colony was integrated into the human network, all fleets aligned with perfect efficiency. We've restored every system taken from us, Voss said. The galaxy is listening. Holt nodded. Yes, but listening is not enough. They must understand what it means to mock Earth. They must remember what they tried to erase. She turned to the holographic map, watching human fleets move like living threads across the void. Every movement was deliberate, every action a statement. Humanity did not seek empire, they sought recognition of survival, proof that their will could not be broken. Krith stood beside her, observing the operation in silence. They are beyond what we imagined, he said. Even I did not foresee this level of precision. Holt looked at him, calm yet piercing. Precision comes from necessity, Admiral Krith. We had no choice but to prepare. They left us to the void, we endured, we built, and now we reclaim. Humanity never forgets. We do not forgive carelessly. We act when it is required. Her gaze turned to the viewport, where fleets stretched across countless systems. This is not war. This is consequence. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien civilizations began to realize the permanence of change. Communications channels overflowed with messages of surrender, requests for trade, and offers of alliance. It was no longer fear alone that dictated their actions, it was respect. Humanity had proven its strength, endurance, and intellect. They had returned to remind the stars that Earth was never weak, that its people could not be ignored, and that every insult, every betrayal, and every abandonment was remembered. The galaxy learned that survival was not enough, it was memory and action combined that made humans unparalleled. In orbit above the restored Earth, Admiral Holt addressed the assembled fleet. We have returned not for revenge, not for conquest, but to remind the galaxy of what humanity endures and achieves. Those who laughed at our extinction have learned the lesson of memory. Every system reclaimed, every fleet aligned, every colony restored, this is proof. Proof that humanity survives, remembers, and commands its destiny. The officers saluted, their discipline perfect, their loyalty unwavering. The galaxy would remember this day as the moment humanity rose from shadows to command the stars. As night fell across the newly reclaimed worlds, lights from human settlements shone across planets like constellations mirroring the stars. Children, born long after Earth was abandoned, looked up at the void, unaware of the terror their species had inspired, yet inheriting its legacy. History had been rewritten not with violence alone, but with endurance, strategy, and memory. Humanity's rise was complete. They were no longer the forgotten planet. They were the center of a galaxy forced to remember. Admiral Krith returned to the Council remnants, now reduced to shadows of authority. He bowed his head, acknowledging the inevitable. "They remember everything," he whispered. "And so must we." The galaxy had been reshaped. Every ruler, every fleet, every civilization knew one truth: the era of mocking Earth was over. Humanity had returned, not as a threat to destroy, but as a force that could not be ignored. They had ascended. The stars themselves seemed to bend toward the black holes of the human fleets, and in the silence of space, one message echoed forever: we remember. We endure. We command. Humanity had come full circle. From abandoned and mocked survivors, they had become the rulers of destiny, not through fear, but through will, memory, and unyielding determination. The void was theirs, the stars theirs, and every world would carry the mark of Earth's return. The galaxy had learned the final lesson: to mock humanity was to forget the power of survival, the patience of strategy, and the inevitability of those who never give up. And so, in silence and majesty, the Human Armada stood eternal, watching, remembering, and commanding the universe.